It's over, do you hear me? I want you out of my life. Sign the papers and be gone!
My husband and his family handed me divorce papers whilst my father's body was still warm in the chapel of rest. I know. You're thinking I've got it wrong, aren't you? That grief's muddled my memory. But no, love, I remember it perfectly. The smell of lilies. The vicar's monotone voice still echoing from the service. And my husband of 37 years leaning across the book of condolence to whisper,
He's gone now, Margaret. Time we both moved on.
I'm 62. I've lived through miners' strikes, 3 recessions, and the death of proper bread in supermarkets. But nothing prepared me for that moment. We were at Kensal Green Cemetery's Victorian chapel. You know, the one all that Gothic grandeur, stained glass, catching the weak London light, brass fittings polished to a shine. The sort of place that makes grief feel official. There were perhaps 40 people there. Colleagues from the Royal Mail where Dad had worked for 43 years. Neighbours from the old street in Acton. My husband's family, of course, clustered near the exit like they couldn't wait to leave. Sign it today, his mother hissed, gripping my elbow with her bony fingers. She'd never liked me. Too working class for her precious Geoffrey, she'd always said. We're not being dragged down by your father's mess. The debts, Margaret. Think of the debts. Debts. That word again. They'd been saying it for weeks, ever since Dad's heart gave out on a Tuesday evening. Right there in his armchair with Countdown on the telly. But here's what they didn't know what nobody knew. Not even my own daughter. Sarah, my father, hadn't left debts. He'd left me a kingdom. And the very building my husband was scheming to buy, the one his fancy property developer, friends were circling like gulls round chips. That belonged to me. I signed those papers. Right there, leaning against Dad's coffin. My hand didn't even shake.
Good girl,
Geoffrey said, actually patting my shoulder. Like I was a golden retriever who'd finally learned to sit. I wanted to laugh. Or scream. Instead, I folded my copy of the divorce petition into my handbag, the black leather one Dad bought me for my 60th, and walked out into the February drizzle. Stay with me now, because what happened next? That's when I learned exactly what I was made of. The wake was at the Bell, a pub on the Uxbridge Road that Dad used to call his second living room. Warm, bitter, cold sandwiches and everyone avoiding the actual word death. Like it might be contagious. I stood by the fireplace unlit, typical nursing. A sherry I didn't want, watching Geoffrey work the room. He was good at that. Charming. That's what I'd fallen for in 1981, wasn't it? His easy smile, the way he could talk to anyone. He was holding court near the dartboard, telling some story that had his brothers roaring with laughter. You all right, Mum? Sarah appeared at my elbow. My daughter, 29, wearing the black dress. I'd helped her choose 3 days ago. Her eyes were puffy. She'd loved her granddad something fierce. I'm fine, love, I said. You don't look fine. I wasn't fine. I was furious. But fury, I was learning, is best served cold as a January morning. Your father and I are divorcing, I said quietly. Sarah's sherry sloshed over the rim of her glass. What? Now? Today? Apparently there's no time like the present. I could see her struggling, wanting to defend him, wanting to comfort me, not knowing which way to turn. So I saved her the trouble. It's all right, Sarah. Really. Some things just run their course. That night, I went home to our house in Ealing. Semi-detached. 3 bedrooms. Magnolia walls and that avocado bathroom suite. Geoffrey refused to replace because it's vintage now, Margaret, it'll come back round. I packed 1 suitcase. Toiletries. 3 changes of clothes. Dad's old pocket watch that still ticked if you wound it just right. And the manila folder my father's solicitor had given me 6 months ago during one of those meetings. Dad said was just updating the will, nothing to worry about. I'd worried anyway. That's what daughters do. The folder contained deeds, share certificates, trust documents with my name, my maiden name, Carter, typed in neat legal rows. Properties in Shepherd's Bush, Hammersmith. One near King's Cross that was apparently subject to significant redevelopment interest. Your father was a careful man, Mrs. Hamilton, the solicitor had said. His name was Mr. Patel, and he had kind eyes behind steel-rimmed spectacles. He wanted to ensure you were looked after, no matter what. No matter what, I'd repeated, his words exactly. Had Dad known? About Geoffrey's late nights at the office? About the perfume that wasn't mine, clinging to his shirts? About the way he'd started looking at me, like I was furniture he'd grown tired of? Of course he'd known. Fathers always know. I left my keys on the kitchen table. Beside them I placed my wedding ring. It made a small final sound against the pine. The bedsit I found was in Villesden, one room above a kebab shop, the kind of place where the wallpaper's seen better decades. And the heating's more theoretical than actual. 62 quid a week, cash in hand, no questions asked. The landlord Mehmet, Turkish, gold tooth that flashed when he smiled, looked me up and down. You running from something, missus? Running towards something, I corrected. He laughed. Brave woman. Tea? We drank Turkish tea from tulip glasses, whilst traffic rumbled past on the high road. It tasted of cardamom and new beginnings. That first night, lying on a single bed, with springs that complained at every movement, I opened Dad's folder again. Really read it this time. Every page, every clause. And that's when I understood. Dad hadn't just been protecting me. He'd been training me. All those years of him saying, watch and learn, Maggie. People show you who they are if you're patient enough. All those times he'd made me balance the household accounts, understand compound interest. Read the property pages in the Evening Standard. Why do I need to know this, Dad? I'd asked once, aged 15 and more interested in Duran Duran than dividends. Because one day, love, you might need to save yourself. That day had come. Geoffrey rang 3 times that week. I didn't answer. Sarah rang 14 times. I answered twice just to tell her I was alive and not to worry. Mum, please, just talk to Dad. He says there's been a misunderstanding. There's been no misunderstanding, sweetheart. Your father understands perfectly. He just doesn't like the conclusion. A month passed. Then 2. I got a job at Waitrose checkout, minimum wage but honest work. My colleagues were lovely. Brenda, who did the early shift and always saved me. The broken biscuits from the bakery. Young Tomasz from Krakow, who was studying engineering, and made me laugh with his terrible English jokes. Why did the Scarecrow win award? He'd ask, grinning. I don't know, Tomasz. Why? Because he was outstanding in his field. Simple things. Good things. The kind of life Geoffrey would have sneered at. And all the while I watched and waited. Because Geoffrey and his property developer, friends, they were moving forward with their grand plan. The building near King's Cross. Luxury flats, the brochures said. Contemporary living in historic London. They'd found a buyer for the site, or so they thought. Some offshore company. Carter Holdings Ltd. That was me, love. That was me all along. 3 months after the funeral. 3 months after those divorce papers. I got a call from Mr. Patel. Mrs. Hamilton, or should I say Miss Carter, they've made an offer. Quite substantial. But of course the decision is entirely yours. I stood in my bedsit, phone pressed to my ear, watching the rain streak down the window. Below, Mehmet was serving late-night chips to a group of nurses just off shift. What would my father do? I asked. There was a pause. Then, very softly, your father would make them wait. And then he'd make them pay. And that, my dears, is exactly what I did. But how I did it, and what happened when they finally discovered who really owned that building well, that's a story that'll make your blood sing. Don't go anywhere, because the quiet woman at the back of the chapel, she's about to become very loud indeed. I discovered something extraordinary at 62. When you're poor and grey-haired, you become completely invisible. And invisibility, my loves, is the most powerful weapon a woman can possess. Let me tell you about the morning. I walked straight past my own husband in Marks & Spencer's food hall, and he didn't recognize me. Not even a flicker. I was standing 3 feet away, holding a reduced yellow-stickered cottage pie, wearing my Waitrose uniform under my old navy mac. He breezed past with her, yes. The new woman picking out Aberdeen Angus steaks and laughing about something terribly amusing. She was younger, obviously. 40-something blonde highlights that cost more than my weekly rent. One of those quilted jackets that screams, "I weekend in the Cotswolds." Everything I used to be before I became invisible. "Geoffrey, darling, shall we get the Chateau Neuf du Pape?" she trilled. My Geoffrey, sorry, correction, that man who used to complain when I bought the £6 Rioja, suddenly nodding along like a Churchill dog.
Whatever you fancy, sweetheart.
I should have felt something, shouldn't I? Jealousy, hurt, rage. But standing there with my reduced-price dinner and my sensible shoes, I felt free, because they couldn't see me. And what they couldn't see, they couldn't fight. Remember that, loves. Sometimes the best strategy is to disappear completely. Now let me tell you what I did with my invisibility. The bedsit in Willesden became my war room. Sounds dramatic, doesn't it? But that's exactly what it was. Every evening after my Waitrose shift, I'd climb those narrow stairs 23 steps. I counted them obsessively, unlock the door with its 3 separate locks. Mehmet was security conscious, bless him, and spread. Dad's documents across the fold-out table. Property deeds, share certificates, rental agreements. A paper trail going back 30 years. My father had been a postman. That's what everyone knew. What they didn't know was that Dad had spent 4 decades quietly buying up buildings nobody else wanted. Post-war blocks in unfashionable areas, scrappy commercial properties near railway lines. The ugly ducklings of London real estate. Buy what people need, not what they want, he'd always said. Needs don't change. Wants are just fashion. Willesden in 1987, nobody wanted it. King's Cross in 1995, practically derelict. Shepherd's Bush in 2001, bit rough, innit? But Dad had seen something else. He'd seen railway stations and underground lines. He'd seen immigrants willing to work hard and pay fair rent. He'd seen London spreading outwards like spilt tea, inevitable and unstoppable. And he'd bought. Carefully. Quietly. Using different company names, trusts set up with Mr. Patel's help. Everything legal but deliciously obscure. Carter Holdings, CM Properties, Margaret Ann Investments, that last one made me smile. My full name hidden in plain sight. I made myself tea-proper Yorkshire tea. None of Geoffrey's fancy Earl Grey nonsense and started making lists. Who owned what? Who owed what? And most importantly, who wanted what? The King's Cross property was the crown jewel. A 4-story Victorian warehouse, currently housing a printing business on the ground floor and storage above. The printing company's lease was ending in 6 months. The area was exploding with development, and Geoffrey's consortium 5 wealthy men who played golf together and thought they were terribly clever had identified it as their flagship opportunity. They'd even chosen a name Hamilton Heights, after Geoffrey's surname. My surname, technically, though not for much longer. The irony was delicious. But here's where it gets interesting, and why you need to keep listening, because what I discovered next changed everything. I wasn't alone in that bedsit, not always. Sarah visited, though less frequently as the weeks passed. Geoffrey was in her ear, I knew, telling her I'd had some sort of breakdown. That grief had made me irrational. "Mum, just come home," she said one Wednesday evening, perched awkwardly on my single chair whilst I sat on the bed. "Dad says you can have the house. He'll move out. You don't have to live like this." I looked around the bedsit, the damp patch shaped like Australia on the ceiling, the cooker with 2 working hobs out of 4, the window that didn't quite close, so you could hear every bus, every siren, every late-night argument from the street below. I don't have to live like this, I agreed. I choose to. But why? How could I explain? That poverty real, uncomfortable, inconvenient poverty was teaching me things wealth never had. That sharing a bathroom with 3 other tenants made you humble? That counting every pound made you sharp? Because I need to remember what matters, I said finally. Sarah left looking confused. She texted later, "Dad says you're hiding assets. Says you've got money somewhere." "That's not true, is it?" I texted back, "Your father's always been good at fiction." That night, I couldn't sleep. The kebab shop's extractor fan rattled until 2 a.m. and somewhere above me. Mr. Kowalski was watching Polish television at volume. I lay there thinking about Sarah's question. Was I hiding assets? Legally, no. The divorce settlement had asked about my personal wealth. I'd declared my Waitrose wages, my pension, my savings £347.82. All true. Nobody had asked about Carter Holdings. Nobody had asked if I owned property under my maiden name. Nobody had asked the right questions. Dad's voice in my head. If they're too lazy to ask, Maggie. You're too smart to tell. 3 months became 4. 4 became 5. I developed a routine that felt almost monastic. Up at 5:30 for the early shift. Work until 2 p.m. Home to the bedsit. Study the documents. Evening walks through London watching the city change. I discovered Primrose Hill where young mothers pushed expensive prams. I wandered through Columbia Road Flower Market on Sundays, buying one stem, just one, whatever I could afford to brighten my windowsill. I sat in the British Library reading room, surrounded by students and scholars teaching myself property law from books that smelled of dust and ambition. You're here every week, the librarian observed. Asian woman, perhaps 40, with glasses on a beaded chain. Research project? You could say that, I smiled. I'm studying how to ruin my ex-husband. She laughed, thinking I was joking. I wasn't. And then, just when I thought I had everything planned, I made a friend who changed the game entirely. Brenda from Waitrose invited me to her book club. It's just 6 of us old birds, she said, restocking kumquats with alarming efficiency. We meet Thursdays at the community centre. Mostly we ignore the book and drink wine. But you look like you could use some company. I nearly said no. The plan was isolation, focus, discipline. But something in Brenda's face. A kindness that expected nothing back made me nod. The community centre was exactly what you'd imagine. Fluorescent lights, stackable chairs, a kitchen that smelled of instant coffee and hope. The women were brilliant. Brenda, obviously. Janet, a retired nurse with opinions about everything. Simone, Jamaican grandmother of 11, who made rum cake that could resurrect the dead. Donna and Marie, sisters in their 70s who finished each other's sentences. And Patricia. Patricia was 91, sharp as broken glass, and had been a secretary at the Old Bailey for 40 years. What brings you to us, Margaret? She asked, pouring white wine from a box into plastic cups. Divorce, I said simply. Ah, Patricia nodded sagely. After how long? 37 years, Janet whistled. That's worthy of proper wine. Brenda fetched the bottle from my bag. We didn't discuss the book Something About a Girl on a Train. I hadn't read it. Instead, I found myself telling them everything. The funeral, the divorce papers, the bedsit. They listened with the focused attention of women who'd survived their own wars. So you've got property he doesn't know about, Patricia said finally. Yes. And he's trying to buy that exact property? Yes. And when he discovers you own it? I paused. I haven't thought that far ahead. Patricia's eyes glittered. Liar. You've thought of nothing else. She was right, of course. Here's what you need to understand, Patricia said, leaning forward. Men like your Jeffrey, they think the game is about winning. But women our age? We know the game is about timing. What do you mean? You could reveal yourself now. Shock him, certainly. But shock fades. No, you wait until he's committed. Until he's borrowed money, made promises, told everyone about his grand vision. Then you show your hand. That's not revenge, dear. That's justice. The other women murmured agreement. Simone refilled my wine. There's something else, Janet added. You need witnesses. Everything documented. Lawyers, yes, but also people who'll stand up in court if needed and say, Margaret Carter was in full possession of her faculties. She knew exactly what she was doing. Are you offering? I asked. We're insisting, Brenda said firmly. And that's how a book club became my council of war. But what happened next when Jeffrey's plans started to crumble and he came looking for answers, well, that's when things got truly interesting. Stay with me, loves. Because invisible women, we see everything. The phone call that changed everything came whilst I was elbow deep in a customer's shopping, scanning reduced chicken thighs at Waitrose.
Is this Margaret Carter?
A man's voice. Posh, the kind of accent that's been to Oxford and wants you to know it. Speaking, I said. wedging the phone against my shoulder, whilst the chicken thighs beeped through.
This is James Worthington Smythe from Crestfield Property Development. We understand you're the owner of the premises at 47 Goodsway, King's Cross.
My heart stopped, actually stopped, but my hands kept scanning. Muscle memory. I might be, I said carefully.
We'd very much like to arrange a meeting, at your earliest convenience, to discuss a rather pressing matter.
The customer elderly gentleman, flat cap, buying one of everything, was staring at me curiously. I finish work at 2, I told the phone. You can meet me at Pret on Willesden High Road at past. There was a pause. Posh people don't do Willesden Pret. Perhaps somewhere more? Central, he ventured. Willesden, I said firmly. 2:30. Take it or leave it. He took it. Now listen carefully, because what happened in that Preter manger, that's when the prey became the predator. I didn't go home to change, didn't put on makeup or fix my hair. I walked straight from Waitrose in my uniform name badge. Still pinned to my chest, Margaret in cheerful red letters, and ordered myself a tuna baguette and a cappuccino. James Worthington Smythe arrived 17 minutes late, which told me everything. He thought I'd wait. Men like him always think women will wait. He was exactly what I'd imagined. Mid-50s Savile Row suit, slightly loosened at the collar, tan that screamed, "Second home in Marbella." He scanned the Pret with barely disguised horror, before spotting me in my Waitrose fleece.
Mrs. Carter.
The hesitation was delicious. Miss Carter now, I said. Divorced. Do sit down. He sat gingerly like the plastic chair might contaminate his trousers. I'll get straight to the point, he began.
We represent a consortium of investors.
You represent my ex-husband Jeffrey, and 4 other men who've overpaid for golf club memberships, I interrupted. I've done my research, Mr. Worthington Smythe. I know exactly who you are. His face did something interesting. Shock, irritation, and grudging respect all at once. Then you'll know we're prepared to make a very generous offer. For 47 Goodsway. How generous? He named a figure. It was substantial. It was also £400,000 less than the property was worth, and we both knew it. I took a bite of my baguette. Chewed slowly. Swallowed. No.
I beg your pardon?
No, I'm not selling. He actually laughed.
Miss Carter, with all due respect, and I mean this kindly, you work at Waitrose. You live in a bedsit in Willesden. This money would change your life.
My life's already changed, I said. I rather like it now. That's when his mask slipped. And that's when I saw the desperation underneath. We've already secured planning permission, he said, leaning forward.
We've committed to investors. We've signed preliminary agreements with contractors. Without that property, the entire development collapses.
That sounds like your problem, not mine.
Jeffrey said you'd be reasonable.
Jeffrey doesn't know me as well as he thinks. Worthington Smythe's jaw tightened.
He said you were struggling, that you'd welcome the opportunity.
Jeffrey says a lot of things. Not many of them are true. I finished my cappuccino watching him calculate. He was wondering how much he could tell me, how much I already knew, whether threatening or pleading would work better.
What do you want?
He asked finally. The right question at last. I want to think about it, I said. I'll be in touch. We need an answer by. You'll have one when I'm ready. Good afternoon, Mr. Worthington Smythe. I left him sitting there, surrounded by the lunchtime crowd of Willesden. All the people men like him never see. I walked back to the bedsit, feeling 10 feet tall. But here's what I didn't know. Jeffrey was already planning his next move. And this time he was bringing reinforcements. That evening, Sarah appeared at my door. Unannounced, which wasn't like her. Mum, can I come in? She'd been crying. I could tell from her eyes, puffy despite fresh makeup. Of course, love. I shifted my paperwork off the chair. I'll make tea. We sat in silence whilst the kettle boiled. Outside, Mehmet was arguing with a delivery driver in Turkish and English, a linguistic symphony of frustration. Dad came to see me, Sarah said finally. At work, during my lunch break. My hands stilled on the teacups. Jeffrey going to Sarah's office that was escalation. What did he say? He said you're sabotaging his business, that you've become vindictive, that you're using some property inheritance to hurt him. And what do you think? Sarah looked at me properly then. Really looked. At the bedsit with its peeling wallpaper and mismatched furniture. At me in my comfortable old cardigan, hair, going grey because I'd stopped dyeing it. At the woman I'd become without Geoffrey's money or approval. I think, she said slowly, that you're the sanest you've been in years. Oh, my lovely girl. He's desperate, Mum. I've never seen him like this. He's borrowed money. Serious money. And if this development doesn't happen, he'll lose everything, I finished. Yes. Good. Mum! Sarah listened to me. I sat beside her on the bed, our knees touching. Your father handed me divorce papers at my own father's funeral. Do you understand what that means? Not the legal part, the human part. He looked at a woman who'd given him 37 years, who'd raised his child, who'd stood beside him through redundancies and family deaths, and all the small humiliations of marriage, and he thought, her grief is inconvenient. Let's be done with her. Sarah was crying properly now. But you don't have to destroy him, she whispered. I'm not destroying him, sweetheart. I'm teaching him something he should have learned decades ago. That other people are real. That actions have consequences. That the woman scanning your shopping might own the building you're standing in. And then I told her something I'd never planned to say. Something that changed the direction of everything. There's more, I said. The property isn't just mine. It's yours too. Or it will be. Sarah's head snapped up. What? Your grandfather's will. Everything's in trust for you eventually. I'm just the custodian. Every decision I make about these properties, I'm making it thinking about your future. About my grandchildren's future, if you have them. I didn't know. Nobody did. That was rather the point. She was quiet for a long moment, processing. Outside, a 98 bus rumbled past, shaking the window. So when you said no to Dad's consortium, I was saying yes to you. Understanding bloomed across her face, followed immediately by something else, fear. Mum, if Dad finds out that I'm going to inherit, he'll try to use you, I finished. Yes, I know. What do I do? You do nothing, love. You go about your life. You let me handle this. And whatever your father says, whatever promises he makes or threats, he throws you. Remember that building belongs to our family, not his. Sarah left an hour later, steadier but still troubled. I watched her from the window, walking to her car under the orange streetlights, and felt that particular pain of motherhood knowing you can't protect them from everything, but trying anyway. But Sarah wasn't the only family member about to get involved. 2 days later, Geoffrey's mother played her hand. And that's when things turned truly nasty. The letter arrived on Saturday morning. Cream envelope. Fountain pen. Posted from Surrey. Dear Margaret, I feel compelled to write regarding the distressing situation between yourself and Geoffrey. Whilst I understand divorce is often acrimonious, I never imagined you capable of such vindictive behaviour. Geoffrey has always provided for you generously. The house, the holidays, a comfortable life. And this is how you repay him? By sabotaging his business. Ventures out of spite? I raised my son to be a gentleman. It seems I failed to recognise what manner of woman he married. Your father, God rest him, would be ashamed. Do the decent thing, Margaret. Sell the property. Take the money. Allow my son to move forward with his life. Yours, Dorothea Hamilton. I read it 3 times. The first time with shock, the second with fury, the third with something approaching pity. Because here's what Dorothea Hamilton had never understood: decency isn't obedience, and my father would have been proud as punch. I sat down with my notepad and fountain pen, Dad's pen, actually. The one from the post office that wrote beautifully even after 40 years and wrote back. Dear Dorothea, thank you for your letter. You're quite right that you failed to recognise something. But it wasn't what manner of woman Geoffrey married. It was what manner of man you raised. A gentleman doesn't abandon his wife at a funeral. A gentleman doesn't lie about debts that don't exist. A gentleman doesn't spend 37 years taking credit for his wife's invisible labour and then expect gratitude. As for my father, he taught me that property is power, that contracts are sacred, and that women who are underestimated have a tactical advantage. I won't be selling. Not now, not ever. Do give my regards to Jeffrey. Margaret Carter. I posted it on my way to the book club meeting. Felt like throwing a hand grenade, but politely. And then, just as I thought I'd drawn all the battle lines, something happened that I never expected. Someone from my past appeared, someone who knew secrets even I had forgotten. That Thursday, the book club was in full swing. We'd actually read the book this time. The Thursday Murder Club, which felt appropriate. Patricia was holding forth about plot inconsistencies when there was a knock at the community centre door. A woman stood there, 70-ish elegant in that effortless way some women have. Cashmere coat, pearl earrings. But her eyes, I knew those eyes. "Maggie Carter?" she said. "Good God, it really is you." And I remembered. Helena Ashworth. We'd worked together at the bank in 1985 before Jeffrey. Before marriage and motherhood, and all the small compromises that reshape a life. "Helena, I saw your name on the community centre board," she said, stepping inside. "Couldn't believe it. I've been looking for you for 15 years. The book club ladies watched with interest as Helena sat down, accepted wine and looked at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. "Why?" I asked simply. "Because," Helena said, "I have something that belongs to you. Something your father left with me for safekeeping. And I think, Margaret, you're finally ready for it." What was it? What had Dad been hiding? And why now? After all these months? Stay with me, loves, because what Helena revealed next would give me the final weapon I needed. The truth, as it turned out, was far bigger than any of us had imagined. My father had been paying my mortgage for 23 years, and I never knew. That's what Helena told me in the community centre, whilst the book club ladies sat frozen with their wine glasses halfway to their mouths. "I'm sorry, what?" I managed. Helena reached into her handbag, expensive leather, the kind that ages beautifully, and pulled out a brown envelope. Thick, heavy, the sort that means business. "Your father came to see me in 2001, she said. "You remember I'd moved into private banking by then? He asked me to set up a standing order. Every month, without fail, $850 paid directly to your mortgage lender." The room tilted slightly. I gripped the edge of the table. That's not possible. Jeffrey paid the mortgage. It came out of his account. Did you ever actually see the statements, Maggie? I opened my mouth, closed it, because no, I hadn't. Jeffrey handled all the finances.
"You're hopeless with numbers, darling,"
he'd always said.
"Let me take care of the boring stuff."
Your father made me promise, Helena continued, her voice gentle. He said, when the time comes, and you'll know when it is, you give her everything. Every statement, every receipt. Let her see what she actually paid for. Patricia leaned forward, eyes sharp. He suspected the husband? He knew, Helena said simply. Men always know when another man's a wrong'un. And that's when I understood my father hadn't just been protecting me. He'd been documenting everything, building a case, waiting for the day I'd need proof. We left the book club early, Helena and I, and went to her house in Hampstead. Proper Hampstead, with wisteria climbing the walls and a cat called Bertie, who supervised from the windowsill. She made proper coffee in a cafetiere, whilst I sat at her kitchen table, hands shaking slightly. He left more than just the bank records, Helena said, setting down a metal document box. Grey, fireproof, with a key taped to the top and my name written in Dad's careful handwriting. He brought this 18 months before he died. Said if anything happened to him, I was to keep it safe until you asked the right questions. What questions? What did I actually own? And what did I actually pay for? Helena smiled sadly. He said you'd been asking the wrong questions your whole marriage. How can I help Jeffrey? How can I make this work? He wanted you to start asking what's mine. I turned the key. The box opened with a soft click. Inside were folders. Color-coded, chronologically arranged, absolutely typical of Dad. Bank statements going back to 1987, building society records, solicitors' letters, and photographs, dozens of them. What are these? I asked, holding up a photo of our house in Ealing. Dated 1988. Proof of condition when purchased, Helena said. Your father documented everything. Every renovation. Every improvement. He even noted when Geoffrey claimed credit for work. Your father had actually paid for. There was a photo of our kitchen extension. 1995, I remembered that Geoffrey had been so proud, showing it off to his golf mates. Did it all myself, he'd boasted. Well, hired the contractors, managed the whole project. Clipped to the photo was a receipt. $23,000 paid by Morris Carter to MJH Construction Ltd. My father. My money. Geoffrey's glory. I worked through the box systematically, the way Dad had taught me to approach any problem. One folder at a time. One truth at a time. The mortgage payments. The kitchen. The loft conversion in 2003. The new boiler in 2008. Sarah's university fees, £27,000 over 3 years, every penny from Dad's savings. He never said anything, I whispered. Not one word. He didn't want gratitude, Helena said. He wanted you safe. And he knew the moment you realised what Geoffrey really was, you'd need proof. Not just of what you owned, but of what you'd been robbed of. And there at the bottom of the box was the final weapon. The one thing that would destroy Geoffrey completely. A folder marked GH Business Ventures. Geoffrey Hamilton. My husband who'd always been between opportunities or building something big. Or just about to turn the corner. Inside were loan agreements, signed by Geoffrey Hamilton. Countersigned by Morris Carter as guarantor. Dad had been backing Geoffrey's schemes for decades. The property development company in 1993 failed. £40,000 lost. Covered by Dad. The import business in 1998 collapsed. £55,000. Dad. The consultancy firm in 2005 never took off. £30,000, Dad. Every venture. Every failure. Every time Geoffrey had come home saying, "Just bad luck, darling." The market shifted. My father had been quietly paying the debts. Why? I asked Helena. Why would Dad do this? Because he loved you, she said simply. And because he knew that if Geoffrey failed publicly, it would destroy you too. The embarrassment, the shame. So he protected you both. But he documented everything, hoping one day you'd be strong enough to leave. I thought about Dad in his armchair, watching Countdown, dying quietly whilst I was at Sainsbury's buying lamb chops for Geoffrey's dinner. Had he known then that I'd finally be ready? There's one more thing, Helena said, pulling out a sealed envelope from the very bottom of the box. He left you a letter, made me promise I'd only give it to you when you were free. My name on the envelope in Dad's handwriting. The date January 2025, 2 weeks before his death. My hands shook as I opened it, and what I read made me cry for the first time since the funeral. My dearest Maggie, if you're reading this, 2 things are true. I'm gone and you've finally left him. I hope I'm wrong about both, but I suspect I'm right about at least one. You're probably angry with me, wondering why I never told you. Why I let you stay with a man who treated you like furniture he'd grown tired of. The truth, my love, is that I couldn't tell you. You had to discover it yourself. Marriage is like faith, nobody can lose it for you. You have to wake up one morning and realize the God you've been worshipping is just a man. Flawed, selfish, small. Geoffrey isn't evil, he's just weak. And weak men spend their whole lives taking credit for other people's strength. Everything in this box is yours. The house, the renovations, Sarah's education. You paid for all of it through me. I was just the banker. But here's the important bit, Maggie, don't be angry. Don't waste time on revenge. That's just another way of letting him live in your head. Instead, build something beautiful. Take those properties I left you are properties. Really, because you earned every one of them by surviving that marriage and make them mean something. Create homes for women who need starting over. Spaces for daughters who need safety. Make our buildings speak kindness. You're 62. You think that's old. It isn't. It's experienced. Go live, my darling girl. Loudly. Proudly. Fully. And when Geoffrey comes begging because he will remember this, forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. And kindness doesn't mean being a fool. All my love. Dad. P.S. The combination to the safe at 47 Goods Way is your birthday 1703-62. Inside, you'll find the original Victorian architectural drawings. They're worth more than the building. Use them wisely. I sat in Helena's kitchen and sobbed. Great heaving sobs that came from somewhere deep and ancient. Brenda, who'd followed us to Hampstead with Janet and Patricia, put her arms around me and let me cry into her cardigan. He knew, I kept saying. He always knew. Of course he did, Patricia said briskly, refilling wine glasses. Fathers always know. The question is, what are you going to do about it? And that's when I made my decision. Not revenge. Something bigger. The next morning, I rang Mr. Patel. I need to call a meeting, I said, with Jeffrey's consortium. All of them. 1 week from today. May I ask what you're planning, Miss Carter? Justice, I said. The expensive kind. I spent that week preparing. The book club helped. Brenda typed up documents on her grandson's laptop. Janet, with her nursing efficiency, created spreadsheets. Simone baked because, as she said, every war needs proper food. Patricia coached me in courtroom bearing, shoulders back. Voice steady. Make them come to you. Sarah visited twice. Worried. Hopeful. Scared. Mum, what are you doing? Finishing something, I told her. Something your granddad started. Jeffrey rang my mobile 17 times. I didn't answer. His solicitor sent 3 recorded delivery letters. I returned them unopened. Let them sweat, because here's what men like Jeffrey never understand. Patience is its own kind of power, and women who've spent decades waiting were very, very good at it. The meeting was set for Thursday 2 p.m. at a conference room in Bloomsbury. Neutral territory. Expensive. The kind of place that charges £200 just to book the space. I arrived early. Wore the navy suit I'd found in a cancer research. Shop £12, still had the M&S label inside. Paired it with Dad's pocket watch on a chain. My armour. Mr. Patel was already there, arranging documents with legal precision. Are you certain about this approach? He asked quietly. Absolutely. It's unconventional. Good. At exactly 2 p.m. they arrived. Jeffrey first, looking greyer than I remembered. Then Worthington Smythe. 3 other men I recognised from newspaper. Articles developers, investors, men whose names appeared in the Financial Times. And Jeffrey's mother, Dorothea, dressed like she was attending a funeral. Appropriate, really. They sat on one side of the glossy conference table. I sat on the other, flanked by Mr. Patel and Helena, who'd insisted on coming for moral support. Jeffrey wouldn't meet my eyes. Shall we begin? I said pleasantly. And what I told them in that room, what I revealed about who really owned what and who'd really paid for what, well, that's when their empire started to crumble. But here's the thing. Loves, I wasn't there to destroy them. I was there to offer them something far more interesting. Stay with me. Because what happened next? That's when this stopped being a story about divorce and became something else entirely. I didn't offer them revenge, I offered them a choice, and watching them squirm was more satisfying than any courtroom victory could ever be. There they sat on the other side of that glossy Bloomsbury conference table. 5 men in suits that cost more than my monthly rent, plus Jeffrey's mother clutching her handbag like it might save her. And me? Still wearing my cancer research shop suit with Dad's pocket watch hanging from the chain, looking every bit the skint pensioner they'd assumed I was. Except I held all the cards, every single one. Shall we begin? I said again when nobody seemed capable of speech. Jeffrey finally looked at me. Really looked. And I saw at the exact moment. He realized he'd thrown away something irreplaceable. Too late, love. Far too late. Now listen carefully. Because what I said in that room didn't just destroy their plans, it rebuilt mine. And sometimes the best revenge isn't taking everything. It's making them watch whilst you give it away. Mr. Patel slid the first document across the table. Property deeds. All in my name, Carter, not Hamilton. Dated years before I'd even met Jeffrey. These are the holdings of Carter Properties Limited, I began, my voice steady. 17 buildings across London. King's Cross, Shepherd's Bush, Hammersmith, Acton. Approximate current value, 47 million. Worthington Smythe went pale. One of the other Investors Marcus something owned a Bentley dealership actually gasped. That's not possible, Geoffrey stammered. Your father was a postman. My father, I said quietly, was a postman who understood that property is the only real wealth in London. He bought buildings nobody wanted in areas nobody valued. And he put them in my name, my maiden name, which you, Geoffrey, never once thought to check. Helena slid across the second folder. Bank statements, decades of them. These show mortgage payments for 23 Oakwood Avenue, Ealing. Your marital home, Mr. Hamilton, paid in full by Maurice Carter. Via standing order from 2001 to 2024, total contribution £247,000.
I paid that mortgage.
Geoffrey shouted, half rising from his chair. You paid nothing, I said. You claimed you did. There's a difference. Mr. Patel continued, methodical as surgery. Kitchen renovation, 1995, £23,000 paid by Maurice Carter. Loft conversion, 2003, £31,000, Maurice Carter. University fees for Sarah Hamilton, 2013, 2016, £27,000, Maurice Carter. New boiler, replacement windows, garden landscaping, shall I continue? Dorothea Hamilton had gone grey. This is a fabrication. My son would never— Your son, I interrupted, spent 37 years taking credit for another man's money. My money, as it happens, since Dad was simply the banker. And then I showed them the photograph that changed everything. I placed it in the centre of the table. Our wedding photo. 1987, young, hopeful, stupidly in love. I was 24, I said. Geoffrey was 28. We got married at St. Mary's in Acton. Dad gave me away. Paid for the whole wedding, actually £4,000, which was a fortune then. Geoffrey promised me the world. I laid another photo beside it. Same church. 2024, Dad's funeral. This is where Geoffrey handed me divorce papers. Told me the dead were dead and the living had to move on. Hours after we'd buried the man who'd bankrolled our entire marriage. Geoffrey's face crumpled. Maggie, I didn't know about the money. I swear I didn't know. You didn't ask, I said simply. You never asked where the money came from when you needed it. You just took it and claimed it as your own brilliance. Worthington Smythe cleared his throat, trying to regain control.
Miss Carter, this is all very illuminating, but we're here to discuss 47 Goodsway. We've made a substantial offer.
Surely we can reach an agreement. Oh, we'll reach an agreement, I said. Just not the one you're expecting. This is where I made them an offer they couldn't refuse. Not because it was generous, but because refusing would destroy them completely. I stood up, walked to the window. Bloomsbury stretched below Russell Square, the British Museum. Centuries of London history. Built on deals exactly like this one. Here's what's going to happen, I said, turning back to face them. 47 Goodsway isn't for sale. Not to you. Not to anyone. But our investors, Marcus began. Your investors are your problem. You borrowed $8 million against a property you didn't own and never had any legal right to. That's called fraud, gentlemen. The Serious Fraud Office would be fascinated. Dead silence. However, I continued, watching hope flicker in their faces, I'm not interested in sending anyone to prison. I'm interested in justice. So here's my offer, and it's non-negotiable. Mr. Patel distributed the documents I'd spent a week preparing with the book club ladies. You will return every penny you borrowed to your investors. I don't care how. Sell your golf club memberships. Remortgage your houses. Cash in your pensions. But those people who trusted you get their money back. Every penny. With interest.
That's impossible.
Worthington Smythe started. Then prison, I said cheerfully. Your choice. Geoffrey was crying now. Actual tears.
Maggie, please. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I never meant.
Meant what? To use me? To discard me when I was no longer convenient? To celebrate? My father's death as an opportunity. My voice stayed level. Dad had taught me that. Never shout when quiet will do. Second, I continued, Geoffrey will sign over his share of the Ealing house to Sarah. It's worth perhaps £600,000 now. Consider it partial repayment for her university fees. The fees my father paid.
That's my house.
Geoffrey protested. It was never your house. It was always mine. I'm being generous letting you have had it this long. Dorothea Hamilton found her voice. You vindictive little... Careful, Helena said quietly. It was the first time she'd spoken. Defamation is also actionable. I smiled at Dorothea. I received your letter. Charming. You said my father would be ashamed. Let me tell you what my father would actually think. He'd be proud, because he taught me that power isn't about having money. It's about knowing what to do with it. And then I told them what I was really going to do with 47 Goodsway. The thing that would haunt Geoffrey for the rest of his life. The building at King's Cross, I said, will become something useful. Not luxury flats for people who have 3 homes already. Something London actually needs. I pulled out the architectural drawings, the Victorian originals Dad had mentioned in his letter. Worth more than the building itself. These show the original purpose. It was a women's boarding house. 1887. A place where women widows, mostly after their husbands, died in the docks or the factories could live safely and affordably. I laid the drawings on the table. Beautiful. Detailed. Each room numbered, each space designed for dignity. I'm going to restore it, I said. 40 bedsits for women starting over. Widows. Divorcées. Women who've been made invisible by age or circumstance. Rent will be £80 per week, including bills. There'll be a communal kitchen, a garden, a library.
That's not economically viable.
Worthington Smythe said automatically. I don't care about viable. I care about right. I'll call it Carter House, after my father. There'll be a plaque by the door with his name. Maurice Carter, 1942-2025. He believed women deserved safety. Geoffrey was staring at me like I'd grown a second head. You're serious? Completely. But you could make millions. I have millions, Geoffrey. I don't need more. What I need is for women like me, women you threw away to have somewhere to land that isn't a kebab shop in Willesden. The room was silent. And then something happened I hadn't expected. Marcus, the Bentley dealer, spoke quietly. My mother was widowed at 60. Spent her last years in a council bedsit that flooded every winter. She would have loved something like this. He looked at his fellow investors. Pay back what we borrowed? It's the right thing.
Marcus, don't be absurd.
Worthington Smythe began. I'm out, Marcus said, standing. You lot can commit fraud if you like. I'm paying back my investors and walking away. One by one they left. Just walked out. Until it was only Geoffrey, his mother, Worthington Smythe, and me.
This isn't over.
Worthington Smythe threatened. It is, actually, Mr. Patel said, his voice mild. Miss Carter has recordings of every phone call you made pressuring her to sell. Borderline harassment. She also has documentary evidence that you knew the property ownership was disputed, but misrepresented it to investors anyway. That's fraud by false representation under the Fraud Act 2006. 7 years maximum sentence. You're bluffing. I pulled out my mobile. Pressed play. Worthington Smythe's voice tinny but clear.
Miss Carter, with all due respect, and I mean this kindly, you work at Waitrose. You live in a bedsit in Willesden. This money would change your life.
I stopped the recording. I recorded everything, on the advice of my solicitor. All perfectly legal with the right equipment. Now get out. He left. Practically ran. Just Geoffrey and Dorothea remained. And this is where I found something I didn't expect forgiveness. Not for them. For myself. 37 years, Geoffrey said quietly.
Was any of it real?
I thought about that. Really thought. The first 5 years were real, I said finally. Before money became more important than love. Before you started measuring success by golf club handicaps and luxury cars. Yes, some of it was real.
I loved you.
He whispered. You loved the idea of me. The convenient wife. The woman who made you look good. You never loved the actual me because you never bothered to know who that was. Dorothea stood trembling with rage. You'll regret this. Making enemies of powerful people. I made enemies of weak people who pretended to be powerful. I corrected. There's a difference. And I don't regret anything. For the first time in decades, I'm proud of myself. I walked to the door, then turned back. Oh, and Geoffrey, that woman you're with now, the blonde, she's 37. Do the maths. When you're 75 and need care, she'll be 50. And she'll do exactly what you taught her to do. She'll find someone younger and richer. That's the lesson you taught. Loyalty is for fools. His face crumbled completely. Goodbye, Jeffrey. I hope you find whatever it is you're looking for. I already have. I walked out of that conference room, a different woman than the one who'd walked in. Outside, the book club ladies were waiting. All of them. Brenda, Janet, Simone, Donna, Marie, Patricia. They'd taken the afternoon off work, or in Patricia's case, simply shown up in solidarity. Well? Brenda demanded. It's done, I said. They erupted in cheers, right there on Bloomsbury Street. 6 pensioners celebrating like we'd won the World Cup. Pub? Janet suggested. Absolutely, I said. We went to the Duke, spent the afternoon drinking gin and tonics, eating dry, roasted peanuts and planning Carter House. What colour for the front door? Patricia voted for red, brave and welcoming. Whether to have cats unanimous? Yes. What books for the library? Everything. All the books. An entire wall of stories about women who survived. Sarah rang at 6. Mum, Dad just called me. Mum, what did you do? I chose you, I said simply. The house is yours. Well, half yours. I kept half. But you'll never have to worry about property. Ever. She was crying. I don't know what to say. Say you'll come see Carter House when it's finished. Help me pick the curtains. I love you, Mum. I love you too, darling. So much. 3 months later, Carter House opened its doors. 40 bedsits, 40 women, each with her own story of starting over. There was Linda, 67, whose husband had left her, for his secretary after 40 years. She got room 12 with a view of the garden. There was Yuki, 59, who'd lost everything in a business bankruptcy. Room 23 near the library. There was Cheryl, 71, who'd spent 2 years sofa surfing after her council flat was demolished. Room 7, ground floor because her knees weren't what they were. I took room 1, right by the entrance, because somebody had to make the tea at 6 a.m. when the nightmares got too loud. The plaque by the door reads, Carter House, in memory of Maurice Carter, 1942-2025, who believed every woman deserves a second chance. Jeffrey never contacted me again. I heard through Sarah that he'd had to sell the Ealing house after all couldn't afford the mortgage once the development collapsed. He's renting now somewhere in Reading. The blonde left him. Patricia was right about weak men. I don't hate him. That would give him too much power. Instead, I wake up every morning in Carter House, make myself a proper cup of Yorkshire tea and think about Dad. Did I do right? I ask his photo on my bedside table. And I swear sometimes I hear him laugh.
You did perfect, Maggie. Absolutely perfect.
Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this story, please like and subscribe. Your support helps this channel grow.